Continuing our season preview with the Ole Miss Rebels, Dalton, who were fan-freaking-tastic last year. They went 11-2, won the Peach Bowl. First time in program history that Ole Miss won 11 games in the season. However, Dalton, even though they're one of the best years in program history, it still feels like an appetizer for 2024, man. This team is freaking loaded. And I know the power ranking PFF is 14th right now. Don, I think both of us would agree. It's a top 5 team in the country. The way I would compare them is so much like last year with Florida State. When I was all in on Florida State, I had them number 4 in the country entering the year because they brought back so many great players from already a great team the year before. And they added so much talent in the transfer portal, man. This is going to be one of the best offenses in America. They improved so much defensively, adding guys like Prince Monmielen and Walter Nolan, man. I think they're not only a legit contender to make the college football playoff, I think they're a legit contender to make it really far in the college football playoff. And I'd probably say, Dawn, there's kind of a big 3 in college football of Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. Damn it, I'm going to put Ole Miss 4, dude. I really am. I think this is a really damn good football team that we have in 2024. And I know they're coming off one of the best years ever for that program. Again, it feels like it's just an appetizer for what's to come.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you're talking about a team that could very well be looked at as the biggest threat to Georgia to win the SEC because, winning the conference is still a huge premium. Talk about get a top 4 spot and a bye week and all of that. And that's what they're going to be gunning for. Now, the reasoning for it is you've got just an absolutely loaded offense with the coach in Lane Kiffin, who is arguably the best offensive play caller in the country. But you've got Jaxson Dart, who's a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the country. You've got Trey Harris and Juice Wells and Caden Prescorn and catching the ball. You've got a disgustingly loaded running back group, even after they lose Quinshon Judkins, right? But you get Logan Diggs in there. You get Henry Parrish in there. Like, the amount of depth that they have, and this is a team that still wants to run the ball. Lane Kiffin bases a lot of things around running and play action and then the trick plays off of it. And just the combination of everything they have on this offense, this very well could be a top 5 offense in the country next year, and they just need to prove it for the full season and prove it against the more elite competition in the country.
Honestly, Dalton, I might even rank the number 2 in offense behind Oregon, maybe, and the country. I think it's an elite offense. You mentioned the skill position players, Ulysses Bentley at running back as well. The only question on offense is the offensive line. How will this offensive line hold up? Because last year, they were 105th in PFF grade as a unit last year, and they brought in 4 guys from the transfer portal, but all 4 of them earned sub-65 grades last year, and 3 of them were below a 60 grade last year. So they did add some guys in the portal, but it's not like they added some good players in the portal. Like, the guys they added were solid at best, So the offensive line is the only question mark on this team because other than that, you have a great quarterback, an elite receiving core, and a really good running back unit as well. The only question I have offensively is that offensive line right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it starts on the back end if they can protect Jaxson Dart, which, at times kind of is shaky, not against the lesser teams, but say against an Alabama or a Georgia, and even times in just true drop back sets, right? But, it kind of all goes together when you think about it. And you think about Jaxson Dart, and he's 2 things. One of the best play action passers in the country, and really going along with that with like deep crossers and outs and things like that. One of the best intermediate throwers in the country. Second in the Power 5 last year in yards and touchdowns on intermediate throws. He makes a lot of intermediate throws, and he makes a lot of throws outside the numbers. This is one of the best outside the numbers passers in the country, if not the best. You could argue he's the best, right? For what Lane Kiffin wants to do in his system, Dart does just about everything spectacular. The big question is, and we saw this against Georgia and Alabama in their 2 losses last year. Now, I was more encouraged by it against an elite defense in Penn State in their bowl game. Can he, when everyone in the stadium knows he's going to throw, and it's true drop back instead of play action, can he be the elite guy then? Because he got better in non-play action situations last year, but not quite at an elite level. He's more of a decent true drop back passer than he is like how he's an elite play action passer, right? So everything that Kiffin asked him to do, spectacular. It's just going to be it's going to with Jaxson Dart's season is going to come down to, I think it's just moments, right? When we talk about even they talk about Heisman moments a lot, and I don't know that Jaxson Dart will win a Heisman, but I'll tell you what, if he has a good enough year, he probably could, right? it's going to be a moments thing, right? It's going to be, is there that fourth quarter drive against the Georgia like that? Just, because last year, yes, they would make a 12-team playoff, but when you're talking about winning the SEC, maybe winning a national title, getting in that top four conversation, can he, when all 100,000 people in the stadium know he's throwing it, he's going to take a 5-step drop and find his man, can he make the throw? And especially a lot of his mistakes come over the middle of the field. And that's what happens when they're dropping guys in coverage. Those windows are tighter. He doesn't like those tight windows like that sometimes. So I just think it's going to come down to moments. Like, take the 12 games, and there are 10 of them where he's going to look really, really good, and everything's going to go right, and Kiffin's on a roll, and that's it. It's those 2, maybe even 3, or if they get to the SEC title game, those moments for Dart where it's like, are you very good, or are you like one of those guys? Even to get into the draft conversation, like one of those guys. I think there's very little I can pick apart in his game, but that would be it for me. It's just doing it in the biggest of big spotlights.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. That is the big question, I think, with Jaxson Dart right now, but I still think he's a top Heisman contender with all the weapons he has around him. And one of them is Trey Harris, who's going to be the top receiver for him this year. He really did well transferring in from Louisiana Tech. In fact, he actually looked better as a Rebel than he did as a Bulldog. 89.6 receiving grade, which was 6th among FBS receivers last year, over 9 points higher than what he posted the year before at Louisiana Tech. He averaged 3.17 yards per route run. That was 9th among all receivers in college football. Now, there are some things with Trey Harris that need to be cleaned up. He is not that good of a route runner. He's not that athletic of a player either in terms of his speed. He was only open on about 29% of his targets against single coverage, which is a really, really low rate. But he enters the year as a guy who can go up and get it with the best of them. Really good contested catch guy. I think he's a clear second best receiver in the SEC behind Luther Burden III. And I think he should have another big year at Ole Miss with Jaxson Dart there. And also guys like Juice Wells and Caden Prescorn taking some of the load off his shoulders as well. So I think Trey Harris is in for another big year next year. There are some questions with his game for sure. But I think he's a really, really talented player, and he should be the top receiver for the Rebels next year.
Yeah, I agree. He's an animal, and they've got a ton of animals on offense, but they needed to add some on defense, and they added a bunch of guys on defense because they know they were like, we can't keep trying to get in shootouts against these teams that play defensive games against us, mainly Georgia and Alabama in past years, right? But they got a guy on the portal who's one of the best pass rushers in the country, Princely Umanmielen from Florida. If he was drafted this past year, he would have been a borderline first-round pick and certainly a second-round pick, no lower than that. They've, in the last year or so, made a change to their defense where they were running a lot more of like an odd front, 3 down and drop 8 and things like that. They've gone to more of a 4-man front with some outside linebackers rushing, and this is the perfect guy to be doing that. You talk about one of the best pass rushers in college football over the last 3 years, a 22.2% pass rush win rate, a top 5 mark last year among Power 5 edges. He's an elite pass rusher. He makes plays in the run game. He just is he's the exact type of player they need, man. I mean, Ole Miss last year, that's the one thing to me. They couldn't rush the passer for anything. You get Umanmielen in there, you get Walter Nolan in there on the inside. If this pass rush is significantly better, it's going to raise the floor on what they can do as a defense. But this is the biggest piece. This is a top 50 prospect, if not higher, for next year. You get one of the best pass rushers in the country in the portal, and you're a big winner for the portal too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. They brought in so much talent defensively through the portal, and the headliner, I would agree with you, is Princely Umanmielen for sure. All right, bottom line time now, Dalton. Just what is the ceiling for this team? Can this be a national title contending team, or do you think this is mainly merely a playoff team, but not really going to join Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon as the big boys and truly competing for a national title? What do you think the bottom line is for Ole Miss next year?
I think an absolute ceiling is a national title. I don't think maybe that I would pick them as maybe inner circle. Maybe they're in the inner circle. I wouldn't pick them first, right? They wouldn't be the favorite. But I think that is a ceiling that can be reasonably seen as like if everything were to go right, yes, Ole Miss could win a national title. I do think if they were to miss the playoffs, the season would and should be considered a failure. I think This is certainly a top 12 team. You mentioned at the top that this could be easily a top 5 team. Offensively, they're loaded. Defensively, they've added a lot of talent. Lane Kiffin, for as wild a ride as he's been on for the last 15 years, is one of the best coaches in the country. FAU legend also. I just think there's too much. This team has too much to not be in the playoff. And honestly, I think they're the biggest threat to Georgia for the SEC title.
I'd agree with that, man. And you look at their schedule, it's reasonable. It is very reasonable. In fact, it's the third easiest in the SEC, according to our power rankings, only behind, Missouri and Tennessee. You look at their hardest games and the games they're probably not going to be favored in. They're at LSU, but I think they're probably favored in that game, right? They're home against Oklahoma, and they're home against Georgia. So the Georgia game is going to be the one they're not favored in. They're probably going to be favored in all 11 other ones, right? So I think an 11-1 season is certainly in the cards for Ole Miss next year, and I'm all in on this team, man. I said it before. I think they're the fourth best team in the country, and I think there is a clear top three of Ohio State, Georgia, and Oregon. But after that, man, I think it's Ole Miss, and I think certainly a trip to at least the semifinals is in the cards for Ole Miss, and maybe even more than that, man. I really think it's a high ceiling for this team right now. So be on the lookout for Ole Miss, man. They are coming in 2024, and I can't wait to see what they do with one of the best offenses in the country. And now, not only an improved defense, I dare say this is a pretty damn good defense now, honestly, with all the portal additions they made too. So I think they can make some serious noise, not only in the SEC, but in college football next year. So that's what we got for our preview of the Ole Miss Rebels heading into 2024. Again, we're doing this for every one of the 70 Power 5 teams. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.